I can't imagine somebody listening to this and not like writing everything down.
We built this thing. Does anybody want it? And a lot of people said that they wanted it.
Do a lot of marketing before your product is even ready.
I really wanted to be a Much music video host.
I also heard you're a stand-up comedian.
Oh my God.
What are the top 3 things everyone should have in an ad?
If you're waiting to feel ready, just do it right now.
Awesome. And we have a slate to make it official.
Hey creators, it's your hosts, Natalie and Yasmin, and you're listening to the CourseCreation podcast. We'll talk business, building digital empires, and how to create passive income to start living a life you love. We are here to empower those of you who are thinking of starting your own course and to support those who are already well on their way to success. We've built a 7-figure media agency on unique storytelling, and now we're here to share our story in the course creation world, and more importantly, to hear yours. We are committed to creating a space for learning and a space for diversity and inclusion. Now let's get the show started. 3, 2, 1, action.
All right. Hello, everyone. On today's episode, we have the lovely Sarah Stockdale. She is an entrepreneur, a coach, a TEDx speaker, a startup growth hacker, and an all-around innovative tech pro. Sarah is the founder and CEO of Growclass, an online growth marketing training company, and she's also a creator and author of a popular blog and newsletter for millennial women called We Need to Talk About This. It is such a pleasure to have you here with us today, Sarah. We're so excited to chat with you.
Thank you so much for having me on today.
Sarah, this is amazing. We're so glad you're here. I think the first question is, let's really start from, where it all began. Tell us a little bit about your childhood and what led you to entrepreneurship.
Yeah, that's a very windy path. So I grew up in a really small town called Dorchester, Ontario. I had no aspirations of becoming an entrepreneur when I was growing up. I actually wanted to be an on-air broadcast journalist. That was like my dream. I really wanted to be a Much music video host. So that kind of led me to, I did my undergrad in communications and then went and did a master's, which was going to be a master's of journalism. But then when I, went through that degree, decided that maybe news wasn't exactly my thing. So went and did a master's of professional communication, not to say that you need any education at all to become an entrepreneur. It's not. None of those things were necessarily directly applicable to what I do now. But yeah, I grew up in a super small town. I always wanted to kind of get out and move to the city. So I went away to school and then I came and did a master's at Ryerson. And when I was graduating, I had kind of 2 paths put in front of me. One was do the thing that everyone else does, go work at a big PR agency and take a safe job that matches my education. Or I had the opportunity to go work at a really small early stage accounting software startup, which none of those words were cool at the time. This is like over 11 years ago. Working at startups wasn't cool. I didn't know what accounting software meant. But I did see an opportunity to learn and grow my career quite a bit faster if I took a bit of a risk and took a chance on a smaller company. So I did. And then that company ended up a few months later raising $21 million from a big kind of venture capital firm in Silicon Valley. Some of the early guys in Facebook started. So that kind of kicked off my journey in startups, which led me to becoming an entrepreneur eventually. I was just around so many entrepreneurs. I watched other people start their businesses. I was kind of the muscle on the growth side behind their launches and their marketing efforts and kind of learned from doing it for other people. And then, really just wanted, like, I kind of grown businesses that were other people's ideas, that were other people's babies for so long that I wanted to try to do that for myself.
That's amazing. Yeah. Congrats on all the success. That's fantastic. And so you led teams to grow. Growth was essentially your beast and all the organizations that you worked with. And that's essentially now led you to Growclass. Tell us about that initiative. When did it come to fruition? How long has it taken you to get to the point of the launch?
Yeah. So the last startup that I worked at was acquired by Airbnb in 2017. And after that acquisition, I was fully burnt out. I was done. I didn't want to move to San Francisco and work at Airbnb. I didn't want to join another startup. And really the burnout led me to starting my own consultancy called Valkyrie. So I was helping other early stage tech companies figure out how to grow their business, both here and in New York and in San Francisco. So I was having a lot of fun doing that, but I was noticing that there was this trend where the companies that I was working with were trying to hire growth marketers, and kind of folks who had experience growing tech companies or growing their own companies, and they were struggling to find that talent. And so what I was doing with them was helping them hire and train up their talent. And in the process, not really knowing it, building Growclass. So I was testing all of my kind of theories on how to learn growth in flight with my clients, and saw that as an opportunity to, okay, could we bring this and create an in-person course? So we took everything that we learned from building those companies and from training those folks, and we built the first in-person version of Growclass, which was last September. And that was, it was an experiment. Everything we do in growth is experimental. We're like, I don't know, maybe do people want to learn this? Is this interesting? Is this helpful? And when we want to test an assumption like that, we just kind of put it out into the world and collect the data. So we put up a landing page and we were like, we built this thing. Does anybody want it? And a lot of people said that they wanted it. So we knew we were kind of on the right course, and we closed the consultancy at that point and shifted completely into building the in-person version of the course. We tagged all of kind of my favorite people, the Avengers of growth marketing in my mind, to teach different elements. And then when we realized that our skill set was in growing kind of digital products, so we're like, why do we create an in-person thing? We're really good at this other thing. So we started around December, early January, building the online version of Growclass.
The Avengers of growth marketing. I love that.
that.
So growth, I was on the website for growth marketing. It says it's a video course experience. Is it like a live webinar experience, or are they like, is the content already created and when somebody signs up, they go through the content?
So it's a little bit of a hybrid. So the way Growclass works is we've built out all of the content. We had a professional videographer do the videos, and some of it is kind of slide and screen share walkthroughs because we're teaching you Google Analytics and some SEO. So we have the contents like pre-built and edited professionally. And then we also have a community element. So you're not going through it alone by yourself. Kind of as soon as you start on a date with a community. You have a Slack channel of your class. You have a discussion group of a smaller version of that class. And we have live elements every week. So we have live office hours every Thursday. And then we also bring in guest experts to have kind of special events just for the course. So it's a little bit of both. We wanted that kind of community experience because every time that I've signed up for an online course, it's in my email to log in, but like, do I ever log in and actually do it? Like, I don't know. So for ours, what we wanted, we didn't just want to sell a thing. We wanted the thing to be valuable and practical and useful, and also to build a community around it so that you leave not just with the skill set that you're learning in the videos, but you also leave with a network and a community and connections that are going to enable your career.
That's amazing. So not only are they, learning from the actual content, but the community building is so big because networking right now, especially in the world today, is really, really important. Who is Growclass made for? Like, who's your demographic? Is it actual people who are trying to create content online, like course creators, or is it anybody who's launching anything?
So I would say it's somewhere in between. So we have kind of three types of students that get the most out of Growclass. One of them are people who are already working in marketing, and that doesn't necessarily have to be at a tech startup. It can be kind of any company that has like 1 to 3 years of experience, is kind of intermediate, but wants to get more experience, build their network. And usually those folks are really great at one thing. They're really good at email marketing, or they're really good at SEO, but they want to kind of broaden out their skill set. So that's the first person. The next one is entrepreneurs and founders who want to figure out how to grow their own business. They're building a growth plan for their company. And they're looking at how do I do this sometimes all on my own, or how do I hire someone to do this and know that that's the right person and that they're doing the right things. And then the third is we've had a lot, and I wasn't expecting this, but I'm so excited by it. A lot of folks who are really senior in their careers in brand or marketing, but have more of a traditional background and are looking at, okay, I would like to, revisit my skill set, bring it into 2020 and potentially get a job at a tech company or level up my organization with a different way of thinking about marketing.
That's amazing. So Sarah, in talking about community, it sounds like obviously with your wealth of experience and your own personal network, professional network, personal network, and based on your obviously previous company, how did you attract more people to Growclass? How did you build the community? How did you reach out to your demographic to get the word out?
Yeah, that's a great question. So we had kind of built like a little bit of an email list and some kind of notoriety with our in-person courses.
What's
and
a little email list? How many are we talking?
Fair. So for me, a little email list is like the 1 to 5,000 mark, and then we're getting like a little bit closer to medium when you get to the 10,000 mark. So it is really a little email list. Like we're not going out to 100,000 people yet. So we're not like an Amy Porterfield style course creator. We're still babies. We're still very new. But really the way that we built that list was just by providing super valuable content. So we have a growth newsletter that goes out every week. I write it or curate some content in it, and it's kind of actionable and also kind of sassy and not super buttoned up professional, because that's not our brand. We speak to you like a best friend, not like a client. So honestly, I think for any company, your email list is the first kind of growth channel you should be curating. The other thing is we had a bit of a reputation from our in-person courses. Our previous students had really phenomenal experiences, which is good, and we worked very hard on that. So they had very nice things to say about us. We developed a little bit of a referral network that way. So a lot of actually the people who are in the current 2 cohorts of Growclass have connections to our former students. So we kind of see the word of mouth network is quite strong. And then we work with an incredible ad agency. So we worked with them to create some lead magnets and to kind of run some ads to kind of test different markets that we might not have direct network in.
How long did it take you to build that email list? And I understand that some of that is, like you mentioned, from your previous company. If we were going to not account for that, how long would you say?
So most of that growth was for Growclass. For the previous consultancy, to be honest, we didn't really do a lot of our own marketing. We were 99% focused on our clients, and our clients all came to us through word of mouth and referral. So we for a long time, we weren't actually doing the things we know how to do for ourselves. So not ideal, but we probably started working on the newsletter about four months before our launch. Maybe not even that long.
Yeah.
But we leveraged lead magnets. We ran some ads to our lead magnets that they performed at a pretty good, like a pretty low cost. So that helped a lot.
Yeah, we identify a lot with that because I feel like our focus was always on our clients, and now shifting the focus a little bit more on ourselves and how we can get ourselves out there. Leading up to the launch, how important was marketing before actually maybe having a product ready? Or is that a strategy that you took? Obviously doing surveys, understanding your market, doing that market research, but beyond that, we've heard some mixed reviews, do a lot of marketing before your product is even ready. I just want to get your input on that.
So my growth marketer stance is like 100% yes. Don't build something unless you know there's demand for it. Make sure that you're testing that messaging before you invest a lot of time and money. What worry about with companies is they spend all of this time building a thing, and then they go to market with the thing and everyone's like, it's close, but it's not the thing that we were looking for. And that's a lot of wasted time and resources. So I highly recommend experimenting with that before you go to market with it. For our online course, we had already tested all of that material in person in class. So we had kind of refined it over 3 cohorts and over 4 or 5 months. And so we had that content built. We just had to then figure out, how do we translate this into an online platform and make it compelling in a different format? Because we were hosting 3-hour-long sessions on Tuesday mornings with our cohorts, and you can't do 3 hours sitting in front of your laptop. Like, it's just not, you can't, like, you've got like 5 minutes of YouTube attention span. So we had to adapt the content to the online platform. But for someone who's just starting, I would say, like, put up a landing page and see if people even give you their email address. A credit card number is better. But you do have to commit to creating great content then. Like, if you are going to take someone's money, I hate that there are just so many bad courses. Like, if you're going to sell something, make sure you're providing value in return.
That's very true. Thank you for pointing that out. So speaking of landing pages, if somebody is just starting out and they're going to do exactly what you just suggested, which is put up a landing page and see if you can even get somebody to give you their email, what are some of the must-haves on that landing page?
Oh man, landing page development is my jam. So there's a couple of things that you have to think about. First, how are you getting traffic to that landing page? Because putting up a landing page in isolation doesn't actually grow anything. So you need to have, lead magnets, pieces of content that they can download in exchange for an email address, ads, some sort of partnership that's going to send you traffic to that page. So you kind of have to figure out who's going to be landing on that page, where are they going to be coming from? And then you have to tailor that content to that core user persona, the person that you think should be taking your course. You might be wrong, but you have to kind of start somewhere. So who is that core target user, and what do they need to hear? What is the value proposition, the short sentence that kind of encapsulates your value, and then that descriptor copy. So we've got kind of headline, descriptor copy, call to action. Are you asking for their email? Are you asking them to sign up for the course? Might be a little bit sudden, we just met, so maybe long form sales page, kind of give them some more information. And then you do need some trust, markers of trust. So testimonials, logos, ways that people kind of identify that this isn't some random online course that isn't real or isn't going to deliver value, like that you've either the course creators, because you might not have testimonials if you don't have a thing yet, but you can have kind of markers, clients that you've worked with in the past, their logos, your previous clients, testimonials about how great you are at the thing you're teaching, just as a way of marking that you're supposed to be there. And then the rest of your landing page should really be about telling the story of who your customer is, what their problem is, and then the resolution that you're providing. And you really have to get, from a growth perspective, like, you have to get into the heads of your users. They have to read that page and be like, this is me. These are my problems. How do they know? Are they inside my head? Like, are they there at 3 a.m. when I wake up worrying about this? So that's your job as the content creator, as someone who's kind of writing that page, to really understand that user and their problem and the positioning of how you're solving it.
Wow, so much amazing practical wisdom and all of that. Thank you so much for sharing that. So speaking of that landing page and all that content that you're putting out there, I was really it's really nice to hear that you did that through a newsletter, like getting emails and it was just the voice. Sounds like it was the voice in your copy. Do you think that that's still possible to do with a landing page, to just have a really strong human voice in your copy? Or do you think that people should use video so that people can actually get to know them if they want to learn from them?
So I think video is powerful if you have it. We filmed some trailers for the course, and to be honest, we got so busy with all of the moving parts that the editing of the trailers went to the bottom of our priority list. It would have been really nice to have them, though. two things on that. One, video is powerful, especially if it's in the same format that your course is going to be in, because you're giving a lot of people, when they were looking at Growclass, were like, can you show me like a preview? And that was a great question and something that I hadn't anticipated enough. So they wanted to see what is the caliber, what is the quality of this course. And I was relying on them trusting me, and I really should have been able to give them that proof. So that's something that we're going to be thinking about for our next cohort. So if you have that, and and you also don't want people to then get into your course and be disappointed because you spent all this money on a trailer and your content doesn't match. You have to have like that contextual experience. So it should look like the inside of your course. And then the other thing is, video testimonials are more powerful than written testimonials. So if you do have video of people who have been through your course or who've worked with you talking about how great you are, that is way more interesting than you talking about how great you are.
So in terms of going back to the launch, obviously you've been using a specific strategy, and we've been hearing a lot about, going for the launch where you are leading up to this launch date, and then your course is available for a period of time. And then there's like the evergreen and the funnels and all of that specific strategy that a lot of people are using and are obviously seeking a lot of success through it. It sounds like your course is available all year round. When it comes to specific promotions or doing any sort of specific like targeted ads to get more people interested and excited, what are some of those strategies that you're taking on?
So right now we've used a launch strategy. So we had the course open for 3 weeks, we closed it, and that creates urgency, it creates FOMO. But for us, it just created like a period of time where we get to do our job as marketers, and then a period of time where we get to do our job as like community builders and teachers. So it separated those two things nicely for us so that we wouldn't have to try to do both all the time, because then we're not going to be great at either. Which is why we opted for the launch, especially because there are live elements to our class and there's a community. We wanted to be able to kind of shut off that like always on marketing brain and move over to community building, focusing on our students. We will have evergreen options at some point. That's part of our plan, because as a business, you don't want someone having to sit around and wait for 4 months for the next time you have a launch. If someone wants to learn something, you want to be able to offer them at least part of that experience. So having kind of evergreen content is on our roadmap. But right now we want to make sure that our students just have a really fantastic experience. So we're separating out the marketing launch phase and the teaching phase.
Makes sense. Makes sense. Can you share with some of the people listening? I know you just launched Growclass. I think you said it was last week, right?
Oh yeah, enrollment closed on May 17th.
May 17th. So I feel it in my gut that it was incredibly successful. Can you share some metrics with our listeners?
Yeah, absolutely. So it was our first kind of online course launch. We'd set a goal before COVID happened to have our first 6-figure course launch. And we kind of, when COVID happened, we were like, we have no idea how this is going to change the dynamics of the marketplace. We're also kind of filming and building content at the same time as we're creating a marketing plan, and we're a very small team. So that was, we've got a million things going on. So we didn't know if that was still a doable goal, and we surpassed kind of our 6-figure launch goal, which was really exciting for the team and kind of an indication that people were looking for the kind of content that we were building.
That's awesome. Congratulations. That's really exciting.
Yeah, really exciting. Can we talk a little bit about this further? Because I feel like a lot of people getting into the course creation world, I know that it's incredibly overwhelming. There are so many courses out there on the same subject, and they're estimating this is going to be like a $350 billion industry by 2025 or some crazy number like that. Mm-hmm. What are your thoughts about the opportunity? Is the market too saturated, or do people just want to learn from others? Doesn't matter how much content there is?
I'm very much like in everything that I do, I try to look at everything with an abundance mindset. So there's a wealth of people who need to learn things. There are tons of smart people who can teach them. what I don't love about the online course industry is that everyone thinks they can teach everything, and they don't think that they have to put in the effort and the work behind the production of the content. You can't just, I see this especially in growth marketing all the time. There's these like 25-year-old dudes everywhere that are like putting up crappy Google Docs and like crappy cell phone videos of themselves and trying to charge $2,500 for it. And that is one of the reasons why I wanted to build Growclass, because that's not okay. You can't take people's money for that. And I knew we could just do it better. So I think if you have a quality product, if you have a relatively charismatic teacher who can hold someone's attention online, if you've invested in the fact that you actually care about the people who are coming through your program and you're invested in their success, I think there's an abundance of opportunity for you in this world. I think if you're trying to make a quick buck and you're trying to scam people into buying something and then never using it, I would rather you just didn't. That'd be great. But in terms of creating quality content that adds value to people, like that is never going to go out of style.
That's great. And speaking about value and price points when it comes to course creation, I'm sure a lot of our listeners, they have a genius. Their genius zone is just like, I need to start a course. They're being inspired right now. And how do you identify how much you should charge for a course? And maybe you can walk us through your experience and how you guys identified that price point.
Yeah, I think so. Our price point came from a few things. One of them was comparable products that are already in market. So we wanted to make sure that we were offering something that was highly valuable at a price point that was accessible for the demographic that we're looking to serve, and then also that matches where the market is right now when it comes to online courses. When it comes to kind of Growclass, I think we're over delivering for our price point, which was always kind of our goal, especially with COVID. I would feel very uncomfortable charging for something and then not over delivering on that value. So our goal is to kind of, at least for now, while we're new, make sure that we're over delivering on that value for the price point. So we came to kind of a $1,970 US price point based on market expectation, but also the competitors in our space for growth start around $3,600 USD. That's like the starting point to learn growth marketing. And for someone who is a new founder or an entrepreneur, that is not really an accessible price point. So we wanted to kind of bridge that, find the accessibility piece, and then kind of match the market in a way that we didn't feel like was crazy Silicon Valley pricing.
I actually want to talk to you a little bit about COVID, because you launched in the middle of COVID. Was there any hesitation around that? Because you said you started building this before COVID happened. But you still went ahead and launched. What was your thinking? Why would you do that?
That's a great question. So we had been building this before COVID. So many people reached out to me and they were like, did you build this in 3 weeks? And I'm like, that's not possible. Don't try to do that. So yeah, we had been working on this for a long time, and we had kind of had this like spring launch goal. And we're growth marketers, so we were just kind of like, let's get the data back. Like, let's find out. We'll realize very quickly if we made a mistake, and we'll be able to pull it back. But we want to continue to be a company. I have got employees that I want to make sure have job security. I want to make sure that the contractors that we work with, we try to, as much as possible, work with women and marginalized people, because that's the folks that we love to serve and that we don't see enough of in tech. So the more we as a company can be profitable and successful, the better we can do for our community and making sure that those folks are okay and safe too. So we decided to go ahead with it because people are stuck at home. They're looking for things to learn. They're looking for a community to connect to, and we knew we could provide that. And then it was mostly just an experiment. We were like, we can't be inside everyone's heads. We did as much kind of communicating with our former students as we could to kind of get a sense of where people were at. But in essence, it was an experiment. We were like, we've done all of this work. We're not going to sit on it. We don't know what's going to happen next. We might as well just get the information back from folks and see if this is useful and valuable, because they'll tell us. And then we were overwhelmed with the response.
Yeah, it sounds like actually the strategy, or not the strategy, but everything that's happened with COVID, where people are actually staying home and glued to their screens, may have actually worked in your favor.
And they're looking for connection. They're looking for ways to use this time to make themselves better, both for their career and personally. And that's what we're focused on too. So.
And speaking of connection, Sarah, so in terms of your communities, you have your Slack communities, I'm sure you have your Facebook group. What other forms of platforms are you using to connect with your audience? And how important is it to obviously maintain, keep up, and have potentially a community manager whose core job is to organize that and be on charge of that on the day-to-day?
Yeah, so we've got a pretty robust Slack community with our alumni and then our current cohorts. As well, we've kind of kicked off a community series that we started back in March called Growing in Challenging Times, where we do free workshops bi-weekly, weekly. We're doing our best. And we ask folks to donate to the Daily Bread. So our kind of community joins. We bring in a great guest speaker. They offer something that's a little bit more deep end than like how to use Zoom or like how to work from home. Like not that that's not interesting to our community. So we wanted to get people who had a little bit more to say. So we've done that. We've got another one coming up next week. We had a really great one with Emily Linetto 2 weeks ago on no code growth. So we're just trying to find ways to add value to the community separate from kind of the working from home guides and kind of the stuff that everyone's doing. And then we love Twitter because the tech community is very active and alive on Twitter. So that's a space that we spend a lot of time in. I have a growth manager on my team. A lot of what she does is community. We have another person who's an incredible partnerships person who's freelancing for us on community. So that's definitely somewhere we spend a lot of our time and resources.
What advice do you have for somebody who is starting to build a community right now and really is starting from zero, like scratch, like there's nothing there? What can they possibly do?
Figure out where the Venn diagram of what you're really good at and what people are craving more content around. Like where do those circles kind of intersect? And where do those people hang out that you're looking to find? So are they already in Facebook groups? Are they in LinkedIn channels? Are they in a Slack channel? Are there ways you can go and create those relationships there yourself? And then just make something valuable and celebrate every single person as they enter your community. People crave a sense of belonging and connection right now more than any other time. And if you can provide that for folks in addition to valuable content, then you'll be able to grow that community organically. But you got to start with your friends. Like start with a bunch of your friends. When I started our growth marketers, we have a private Facebook community for growth marketers. I added in a bunch of my friends and said, can you add in a bunch of folks that you know that you think would be excited about this kind of content? And they did that for me. And then we added it as a line at the end of our welcome email. It was just like, hey, welcome to our community. PS, if you want to hang out with us on Facebook, click and ask to join. And that's how we got the majority of our Facebook group members.
That is great advice. I'm going to make sure I remember that for our Facebook group.
Mm-hmm. Building that organic audience is so key. Absolutely. And then there comes SEO and paid ads and all the things that is your expertise. At what point would you say someone who's starting out and has maybe a few hundred followers, you know what I mean, and their course is ready to go, it's a valuable course, at what point should they start spending ad dollars, and which channels would you start with? Is it Instagram ads or is it Facebook ads? Or I know you have to understand your audience and where they live, but from your experience, what would be the best strategy?
Yeah, I think what you said is perfect. Like, where does your audience hang out? Because if you're going after kind of moms in their 60s, Facebook, 100% Facebook. But if you're going after kind of teenagers or people early in university, they're probably not spending that much time on Facebook. So you have to get more creative with TikTok and Instagram. So I would say it depends on where your community is hanging out.
caveat, most people spend the majority of their money on Google and Facebook. Facebook is both Instagram and Facebook. And that's where the majority of the eyeballs are. So that's where most of us spend kind of our time and our resources. Facebook performed really well for us, but it might not, depending on who your audience is or what your spend is. You also do need to understand those platforms and how to optimize for your audiences, how to retarget properly. So I would say spend some time first figuring out, who are my people? Where do they hang out? How do I need to communicate them to get them to click on something? And a good way to figure that out is just make organic content and see what's popular. And then mimic your Facebook ads and your Instagram ads after the thing that worked well organically. If you don't understand Facebook does a really good job of taking your money. So make sure that you do some digging and figure out how to set up your campaigns properly, how to choose which campaigns to use that are actually going to perform for you, and how to track your return on ad spend so that you don't end up just kind of wasting money. Because that's what I worry about with a lot of course creators and entrepreneurs in general. We have a whole kind of section of our course that's just on Facebook and Google ads, because I see so many entrepreneurs just putting money into an on fire trash can and not really understanding what they're doing.
It's very true. I feel like Facebook can get a little complicated, especially the ads. But going back a little bit to people who are just starting out, we've been getting sort of mixed advice. Some people are saying don't spend any money on advertising, work on your email list, work on your Facebook group, create content, and like you said, celebrate every single person who becomes part of your community. And then some people say, but also spend some money on advertising. Where does your belief lie? Do you think that before you sort of test your product, you shouldn't really spend any money on ads, or do you think there is space in a launch to spend money on ads?
And I'm biased because I come from like growth marketing. I'm always like, definitely. Ads just give you data. If you don't get conversions from your ads, you get information. You can see who's looking at them, who's clicking on them, who's ignoring them, what kinds of messaging are connecting with your users. So I don't think ads are ever a bad idea unless you don't really know what you're doing. The other thing with ads is there's more than just the spend. There's the creative, there's the copy, there's the landing page that you're sending them to. There's a whole bunch of parts where it's not really Facebook's ad platform's fault, but your ads could fall in their face for something that has nothing to do with whether or not your audience is looking for you. So you do have to spend some time and attention on that copy, on that creative, on the landing page you're sending them to, making sure that space converts well. But I would say, yeah, ads are great. Like you're buying attention. And if you have a great thing and you've done a good amount of work on your users, you can buy really useful attention that's going to get you more course signups.
What are the top 3 things everyone should have in an ad?
So first I would say, like, be intentional about your audience. If you do have an email list, upload that into Facebook, and give Facebook something to go off of in terms of who your core users are. So one is like, just put a lot of focus and attention on the audience that you're building in Facebook. The second thing is, you are probably wrong when you're writing your headline copy and when you're writing your descriptor copy, you're probably wrong. So write like a million versions of it, pick the top 4 or 5, test them against each other and see what performs. Same goes for creative. Facebook hates a lot of text and creative. Like, just learn the rules so that you don't get your stuff put on pause or taken down. But make sure you build a bunch of creative, and also, like, beautiful things don't always work the best. So it doesn't always have to be the most gorgeous Facebook ad. Sometimes it's you talking into a cell phone and you think that that's cringy, but actually it performs really well. The people that I work with for Facebook ads, Adam and Gordon, they're a company called Client Magnet, and they also teach the course. They yell at me all the time because I want things to look like my brand. I want things to look super professional, but I know, like, my growth brain knows that, like, ugly things perform really well, and they're always trying to get me to talk into cell phones. So,
Oh my God, you're so, like, you're speaking to us right now, because as content creators, we're like, it has to look amazing. Like even when we were setting up this podcast, we're like, let's get the gear and the lights and the mic. But it's like I can't seem to get my head out of that, is that everything needs to be like branded and beautiful, and like it's just telling its own story of what the brand is. But I think now more than ever, at least what I'm being exposed to online, is that people are just relating to other humans, and it's not about like the sleeves we wear on the outside.
And if you look at some of the biggest course creators like Marie Forleo or Amy Porterfield, they talk into cell phones all the time. And they have all the budget in the world for beautiful, high quality, production value video, but obviously that performs worse than them talking to a cell phone. So they're going to opt for that.
For the like advertising and the social, you would say, because I feel like Marie Forleo is very put together for her actual content.
Oh, for sure. And I believe that like your content needs to be a specific caliber depending on what you're charging. My ads will probably look very different than what's inside the course, because we spent money on production value inside the course. But people don't necessarily, if something looks overproduced, you are more likely to not even see it when you're scrolling through Facebook or Instagram, just because you're so used to ignoring commercials and ignoring traditional advertising.
That's a great point. Great point.
Also, there's construction happening upstairs, so I was like being quiet on mute on my side.
That's the production value side of us.
Yeah.
We're like, oh.
You know, we're living in this sort of space, and I think one of the things that stops a lot of course creators or anyone who has something to offer is this idea of perfectionism. And I think it's really, really important to point that out, because it's just in our human instinct, to want to perfect something before putting it out there. We're in our heads, we have our blind spots, we're constantly thinking, do I look good? Do I sound good? Is this, but it's also when you have something of value, it's about trial and error, and those failures, it's only, feedback, so to speak, so that we can just do a better take the next time that we take it on. So talk to us about some of that, like analysis paralysis, some of the things that you're constantly feeling potentially now. Did you ever go through that yourself?
So I have owned the Twitter handle for Growclass since 2015.
No way.
Wow.
My God, I feel so much better about myself already.
Seriously, I had this idea back when I was working at a startup called Tilt, and I was training my team, and I was frustrated because I was trying to execute, I was trying to hire and train at the same time, and I was like, why can't I just like send them somewhere so they can learn this stuff, and then they come back polished, and then we can execute. And I was like, I could totally build that thing. And then I bought the domain, I got the Twitter handle, and then I left it on a shelf for 5 years. Because I think there's kind of two pieces of that for me anyway. Part of it was imposter syndrome. Who am I to say that I have anything to teach? Who am I to say that I have anything to offer? Because there is a little bit of ego there, right? If you're like, come and listen to me, a lot of the time, especially women and marginalized people, aren't necessarily brought up with that inner, just like, yes, of course, the bravado of like, listen to me, I am the arbiter of wisdom. So I think it took me a long time in my career to feel like I was in a place that I could offer something. So I kind of held on to that idea. I should have done it earlier. We can say that about everything. But I let myself get to a place where I felt confident in my ability to help. And also I got the push of having an employee and just like bumping up against this problem over and over and over again. And it was like the universe was like, just do it already. Like, do I need to give you any more signs that this is what you're supposed to be doing? And then allowing yourself to think of it as an experiment. So I think when people start companies or start courses, they feel like they need a beautiful website and a business card and the gorgeous lighting kit and all the tech, and that they have to pour all of this money and effort before they've even got their first customer. One of our Growclass former students, alumni, messaged me her new business the other day, and she's like, I don't even have a landing page yet, and I already have customers. And like, that is my favorite story. Because awesome. I want people putting their worth out there and getting feedback before they spend all the time, money, and investment. The kind of the best validation that you're on the right track is someone who's willing to pay you. So the sooner that you get something out in front of people and collect credit card information, the more you can understand whether or not you're on the right track.
Oh, sorry. I thought Yasmin was going to say something because I saw you pressing your mic. So I'm like, I'll be nice this time. But I have to say, I can totally relate to everything you just said. NYB Media has been in business for 10 years. In about 4 years in, we're like, let's create an online fitness course. Like, we weren't the experts, but we actually shot this amazing personal trainer. We went through it. We did like all of these exercises. And I don't know what happened, but it was like the everyday of business. It got put on the back burner. We didn't like figure out our business relationship very well. But I just keep thinking to myself sometimes, I'm like, wow, if we actually launched that way back when, and that's what the universe is telling us as well, is just like, you need to be doing this kind of content. And it's so funny how many times we started something like that, but never saw it through. So knowing that you did that too makes me feel better.
Yeah, I think a lot of people are in the same boat. And I think honestly, as awful as this situation has been, I think COVID really inspired everything, because we had to shift overnight. We had to think about ways of getting creative, of, looking at, we've always wanted to create a channel, an avenue to create passive income. And it was always put under the rug because we were catering to our clients and we weren't looking at how to sustain our business and build a legacy above and beyond just the service base of the everyday tasks.
So let's get a little personal, if you don't mind. One of our dear friends who's actually an amazing course creator, and he's very successful. And I won't mention his name because he doesn't want to be out there. But he says that when he's creating a course, he spends crazy hours on it. Like, he'll literally work from like 6 a.m. to like 2 in the morning. And it's like a 2-month period of his life that he dedicates to building a course. And that's just his life. Would you say that that's your experience when you were building Growclass, or were you able to find like a good work-life balance?
I've always tried to find a good work-life balance. I've never been awesome at it. But I did early on, kind of in my tech career, because working at startups really is like a 7 a.m. to 10 p.m. kind of gig, which is not sustainable or good. It's just kind of the reality of it. I burnt out really hard after the kind of second really long stint at a startup after that company sold to Airbnb. I was really quite burnt out. So I don't, as a rule, do the 6 a.m. to 2 a.m. thing. My brain can't handle it. I'm not giving my best when I work like that. You will not get good educational content out of me if I am tired. So I do my best to kind of balance it. I have noticed, like, the building of the course, I think when I started this, I was like, why doesn't everyone do this? And then I got into it and I was like, oh, because it's an insane amount of work. Like, it is so hard. If you want it to be good, if you care about the quality of education, you do need to, like, I wrote 45 scripts. It is just it's an incredible amount of content that you build. So you do end up working quite a bit on it and waking up in the middle of the night thinking about it. It's all consuming in that regard, but my work style, I can't, like, I'm like in bed by 10:15. Like, I'm not like I'm not an all hours work person. I will take longer.
I really admire that. I think I personally do struggle with a good work-life balance. I also have a little toddler, so it makes things a little harder. But, a lot of the times I'll just look at my day and I'm like, oh my God, I've been so busy, but I just don't feel like I got anything done. And it's because I set these probably unrealistic goals for myself. Like, tomorrow I'm going to do X, Y, and Z. And then I just don't even get to the Z at all. Do you have any advice for anyone who's building a course right now on how to manage their time properly, or maybe set goals properly, or, like, how to actually not knock at yourself if you don't, like, meet your schedule?
I've struggled with this a lot, like, especially in the time where we had clients and we were trying to build Growclass, like we would always default to doing work for other people than doing our own work.
That's exactly where we're at right now, by the way. And it's like now that COVID is sort of simmering down and the clients are trickling back in, we're like, okay, hold video editing 101. So and so needs this and this. And it's like, but we're supposed to launch in June.
Yeah, that's it. It's honestly, we had to, so for me, we had a big client until about November, and our first course started in October. Our first in-person course started in October. So we were building the course content and working, I think we were working with like 3 or 4 clients at the time. And that was unsustainable. So for me, I had to prioritize this and like almost step back from everything else. So I said, no clients until we get this thing done, and probably forevermore. Like I don't think we'll
That's
ever
a big statement.
a lot more client work. Yeah, because it is once we kind of had done the first in-person cohort, I realized like this is fun. Like not only is this providing value and the students are having great outcomes from it, but like we're having more fun than working with clients. So but we really had to like draw a line in the sand and say, we're no longer a consultancy. We are now Growclass, because we couldn't do both. We would default to client work always. And for me, I've realized that like I can maybe keep 3 things in my head at a time. So if I say that I'm going to do 10 things on a to-do list in a morning, I'm going to feel like a failure at the end of the day because there's no way I'm doing those 10 things. So every morning I write 3 things down in my physically in my little moleskin, and I get on a call with my team and we talk about the 3 things we're each doing, and then we go and we execute on those 3 things. And if I have, like today I recorded 2 podcasts, which I'm so excited to be able to do, but if I look in my calendar and I see that there's other stuff going on, maybe I'll reduce that to like the 2 things that I have to get done that day.
That's actually great advice. It's so funny because it's so simple. Like, don't write 10 things, just write 3 things. And I don't know why I don't do that. I'm going to do that. Thank you.
I mean,
then you feel successful instead of like a failure.
Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah, good point.
Because you're only overwhelming yourself. You feel a heavy weight instead of actually tackling each task as powerfully as you can. So that's really great advice.
So looking ahead to the future, what do you see for Growclass and what do you see for Sarah?
So for Growclass, we want to explore things past growth marketing. So Growclass is a kind of my background and what I can personally offer. But we're looking at what are the things that people want to learn and how do they want to learn them? Because traditional education trying to move online is not set up to succeed. I hope some schools are going to figure it out. But we're kind of watching them flounder right now. And because of the work that we've been doing, basically I've been working in the internet my entire career. I've never really done anything else. So how do we make online education entertaining and like rich in community and rich in connection in ways that it hasn't been before? And really what we want for Growclass is to be the #1 place that you go on the internet to grow both personally and professionally. This is kind of your first stop if you want to feel uncomfortable and kind of expand who you are and who you can be. So that's for Growclass. For me, I write a weekly newsletter called We Need to Talk About This. It is my favorite. I have a side hustle and a main company that I'm running, but I love to write. So eventually I would love to write a book for kind of, women in their 20s and early 30s who are trying to figure it out.
That's so cool. I also heard you're a stand-up comedian.
Oh my God.
Tell us a little bit about that.
Big asterisk on that one. I'm not a stand-up comedian, but I did take a stand-up comedy course. And I'm a public speaker. I do quite a bit of speaking, and I wanted to be funny. And I'm one of those people that I'm like, I want to learn how to be funny. There's got to be a way to learn how to do that. And so I took a Second City stand-up course, and it was like the best thing that I've ever done for my career. And also for copywriting. If you want to be a great copywriter, go take stand-up comedy. So really I'm a speaker who sometimes tries to be funny and mostly fails.
Really? I never would have thought of that. Go take a stand-up comedian course to have better copywriting. Good advice. Do you have any jokes you can share with us?
Oh my God. My jokes aren't really like set up punchline. They're more stories. So, and they're not appropriate. I don't
Okay, no worries. I thought I'd put you on the hot seat.
This has been so insightful. There's so much amazing content that our listeners can take away, and there's so much that we can take away from this conversation and apply it to our day to day and to the hopefully successful launch of our course. Yeah, and I think if our audience, unless there's any other questions that you want to ask Natalie, but I would love to have Sarah tell us where people can find you and how they can get in touch with you.
Before
Nat
we
will
do
take
that,
Mm-hmm.
we ask this to everybody before we sign off.
Wisdom bomb.
Wisdom bomb. Like if you had to leave our audience, our listeners, with one last wisdom bomb, what would it be?
I think in general in life, you will never feel ready. If you're waiting to feel ready to start a company, if you're waiting to feel ready to start a course, if you're waiting to feel ready for anything, to make a career change, to buy a house, it'll never feel safe and it'll never feel ready. But people who lead interesting lives don't look for safety. They look for that challenge and that opportunity to grow. So if you're waiting to feel ready, just do it right now, because that day will never come.
Love that. Love that. Thank you so much. That's so true, and it only inspires me to like continue putting in action, right? It's just like sometimes we have too many thoughts, and I love what you just said because I know we just need to do the work. That's it. Just do the work.
Mm-hmm. For sure.
Amazing. So Sarah, where can our listeners find you?
So Growclass is www.growclass.co. And I am on social media. I'm on Twitter at SK Stock, and Instagram at SK Stockdale, SK and then my last name.
Amazing. Thank you so much for being here. And honestly, we'd love to check in with you maybe in a couple of months and just see the progress of Growclass and what's going on.
For sure. I love that so much.
Amazing. Well, so you'll be back again. And thank you again for doing this.
Thank you so much for having me on, and good luck. You guys are going to kill it. I'm so excited.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you, Sarah.
That's a wrap on another episode of the CourseCreation podcast. Thank you for tuning in and being a champion of ours. If you enjoyed this episode, please hit subscribe and take a quick second to review the podcast. We really want to hear from you. And we're going to be digging through reviews for our next guest. So if you're interested in being a guest, then you know what to do. Also, join our private Facebook community called the CourseCreation Crew to connect with other course creators. And don't forget to follow us on Instagram at the CourseCreation Podcast. That is all. We appreciate you all so much and look forward to seeing you here next time.